I love ROI. Okay, so this is why I love this conversation. I love when people get a return on their investment, and that can just be their time investment. And of any area that I've taught marketing, when I have said, go do this thing, you will get a return on your investment. Texting has been the most immediate, the literal most immediate. There has been so many times where I've gone to my students, my clients, and I've been like, go text them. And they do, and they call me back 5-10 minutes later, and they're like, I booked them. And I'm like, I know.
Hey there, and welcome to the Event Crushed podcast. Each week, we'll be chatting about all things wedding industry, entrepreneurship, and how to crush it in life and business. I'm so glad you're here. Now, let's dive into this week's episode. Hey there, friend. You are listening to the Event Crushed podcast, where we talk about building wedding businesses that thrive without sacrificing the life you love. I'm your host, Becky, and today I'm joined by Amanda Writesman, marketing strategist, educator, and small business coach. Amanda has spent more than 14 years immersed in the wedding and creative industries, and she's passionate about helping entrepreneurs market with clarity and confidence. In this conversation, we focus on one of the most pressing topics for wedding pros today, marketing to Gen Z. These couples are approaching wedding planning, communication, and decision-making differently than any generation before them. And Amanda offers incredible insights into how to adjust your marketing and sales process to meet their needs. If you've been wondering how to reach Gen Z in a way that feels authentic, this episode is for you. Well, hello, Amanda. Thank you so much for being on the show today. I have been really looking forward to this conversation, and I just can't wait to get into all of it.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
Yes, absolutely. So before we jump in to all things Gen Z and marketing to Gen Z, I would love it if you could just introduce yourself to my listeners for anyone who maybe is not familiar with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Amanda Writesman. I am the owner and CEO of the Bridal Theory, which has been a little bit of everything over the years. And I have been a little bit of everything over the years. I have been in business for over 17 years. So I've seen just about every version of the modern business when it comes to marketing possible. And we're going to talk about that more, but we've, are entering a new phase. But I've ran a successful wedding photography company. I switched over to publication. I eventually wanted to do the most I possibly could to support business owners within the wedding industry and creative industries. And so that actually led me into marketing strategy and support. And so now I really focus in on business coaching for wedding pros and creatives and teach them how to better market their business.
Amazing. I love it. So I don't know why I just assumed this. I didn't know that you were a photographer previously. Mm-hmm. For some reason, I thought you were a planner. I don't know why I thought that.
Everyone has actually asked me that. And I think that that's because I am so pro wedding planner that it seems that way. Mm-hmm. I guess if I went back far enough, I could say that I did technically start out as a wedding planner, but I absolutely hated it. I absolutely hated it. I was way too creative and not type A enough and not organized enough. And I realized that there was just so much logistics that go into wedding planning that I knew I was not the best person for that job, and actually then pivoted to wedding photography after that. So I have dabbled in wedding planning. However, I will leave that to the pros with much respect.
Yeah. For sure. Oh my gosh. I have like the opposite experience. I dabbled in wedding photography, and I shot a couple weddings and did all kinds of engagement shoots and that kind of thing, and thought I was going to be a photographer. But after I did those 2 weddings, I was like, this is not for me. I just knew pretty quickly that was not, my direction. And then I ended up obviously in planning. So it's so funny. It's always fun to hear the origin stories, but yeah, you do seem very pro planner, and so much of, absolutely. I don't know, I always just relate to so much of what you post on your Instagram. Your Instagram is amazing. How long have you had the Bridal Theory page?
So since 2014, I believe, if I'm doing the math right. Wow. I honestly don't think back that far. And it's definitely had its changes and evolutions. Obviously that page actually started with the publication side of the business. and ran the publication side of the business for many years. But the whole goal in the first place was to support wedding pros. And originally that goal was through publication, but things evolve and things change. And I quickly realized that was not the best way to support wedding pros. And so it has evolved into the more education side of business, marketing services and marketing education. And I love it.
Yeah, that is amazing. You are someone who I really consider an expert on marketing to Gen Z. That's something that you talk about often. And so I knew that you would be just a fantastic person to have on to discuss this with. And so I want to jump in.
Let's do it.
One of the first questions I want to ask you, because obviously Gen Z is like our new target audience that most of us are working with. Of course, we still have millennial clients and we will, but Gen Z are the ones who are coming in now. So what do you think are like the biggest differences between millennial buyers and Gen Z buyers?
Well, it's almost like if you wanted to compare millennial buyers to boomer buyers. Like, I hate to use the word boomer, but in our minds, like that seems so different of people groups. And we can see that sometimes as millennials, when we look at boomers, we're like, oh, we wouldn't market the same way. We don't relate the same way. And then we forget that the same thing applies when we look the other direction. So when we look Gen Z looks at us as millennials as foreign as we look at boomers. It's just generational differences. And, that's a cycle. It's never going away. But the main difference is that there's been an entire generation that's grown up with the internet. And that's Gen Z. It wasn't millennials. We were around when things started, but we can remember when things didn't exist. And we can remember the sound of the AT&T dial-up. And we can remember what it was like to have bad signals or when texting actually costs money, right? Like we can remember those things. Gen Z has never been without the ease of communication. They have never been without the ease of purchase. They've never been without social media at all, which those things alone are going to shift your buying mindset. They're going to shift how you plan, how you engage. Like all of these different elements are going to drastically shift just because of the way that people were raised and the things that they were exposed to. So there's a lot of focus on experience and individuality and a lot of uniqueness with Gen Z, a lot of boldness. But at the same time, there's a lot of instant gratification. And there's a lot of information overload, and there's a lot of trend awareness, and these things that just make them a very unique subset of our audience. And I would say like one of the biggest mistakes that we make as business owners is, you at least said it, most people actually cannot come around to the fact that their ideal client, that their client base is Gen Z yet. They immediately assume that their client is not Gen Z until you tell them that Gen Z is age 13. Yeah, that's what our brain goes to 28. And if you're looking at the average marrying age in the United States, you can look at it internationally too, 28 is the average marrying age. So we are at this point where we are hitting a shift of marketing to this generation.
Yeah, that's a good point. Just not even like realizing that that is the generation that we're marketing to now. Because like you said, it starts at age 13. My daughter is 12. So she's like just on the cusp of Gen Z, which has been really interesting. Just seeing things from her eyes. And like you're saying, like these kids now, adults, many of them, the world that they grew up in is so different than the world that we grew up in, even though we did. Yes. Like we were, we had the internet at a young age, but it wasn't like, I can absolutely remember before we had the computer in the house. And like, it was just a different time. And just you mentioned like instant gratification. And I think that's a huge part of it because they've grown up with just the ability to like click a button and get what they want, get what they need instantly, not having to wait. And that's why like, we'll probably get more into this, but response times and things like that, like they have grown up with like that quick, immediate response. And so when they don't get that now, like they're so used to that, it's like, oh, that's a red flag, or like, I'm not gonna, like, I don't have time to wait, days or weeks for this person to get back to me. Like they're just gonna move on really quickly.
And the scary thing is how quickly they move on in our mindset is, oh, we waited 24 to 48 hours to respond to them per our notice on our form, right? Well, within 24 to 48 hours, they've already applied and inquired with 10 other vendors. And the reality is they probably did it that hour.
Mm.
So our mindset and our awareness of how this generation processes so quickly, makes decisions so quickly, and expects returns so quickly really does influence every aspect of our workflow and how we communicate and how we market and all those pieces.
Mm-hmm. So true. One thing I wanted to ask you about was the idea of authenticity in relation to Gen Z, because it's definitely something I've, seen talked about quite a bit. Authenticity, I mean, that the idea of that has been around forever, especially with social media and when stories came into play and the ability to really show who we are as a person outside of just the business owner. And I'm just curious your thoughts on that as it relates to Gen Z. Does Gen Z care more about authenticity than millennials did?
Absolutely. I think at its core, millennials invented this concept of aesthetics. We created this false world, and Instagram was one of the core places that was created and one of the reasons why it was created. But millennials created this idea of perfectionism and this dreamlike world of beauty. And even if you go back as far as 2014, people were freaking out if you just posted an olive leaf, right? It didn't even have to be complex florals or complex ceremony sites or anything like that. It was just, was it beautiful? Was it perfect? Right? And that was great for a season, and it was very inspiring and motivating and all these things. But eventually, even millennials started kind of getting tired of it in the sense that it wasn't true. It wasn't real. And insert short form video, right? TikTok, I would say, was the main catalyst for this. We had this influx of, oh crap, now I can't just show a pretty picture. I need a video to go with it. And video isn't always pretty. You can't or back then you couldn't slap the filters on it the way you can now. And it changed the game. Well, that was the time which Gen Z was coming up into this world of digesting information. And they could see the difference between the real and the fake. And as a generational culture, I kind of love it. I love it for them. I love it so much that they are owning who they are. They're accepting who other people are. There's more acceptance for other people's unique styles and visions. But they want to see what is real as they go through this process in a very balanced way. It doesn't mean they don't want to see beauty. They do. They absolutely do. But they also love what it took to get that beauty to exist, or the shock of the real behind the scenes compared to the beautiful scene, right? We're in the wedding industry. We know weddings are beautiful. We want them to be beautiful. But the reality is we know very well that they're not always beautiful, right? There are scrubbing buckets, and there's pressing linens, and there are dead flowers that you're picking out of arrangements. And there's lots of personalities of sassy family members and all these pieces of this puzzle that fascinate and add to the full experience for Gen Z. They want the real, they want the authentic. They don't want just the filter slapped on perfect version of the end result. And that can be really hard for the wedding industry, because we have almost used it as a crutch to be able to hide behind the perfect. And to be able to say, okay, here's this beautiful arrangement. Hopefully that will bring me clients and customers. I don't have to show my face. I don't have to tell the story about the floral arrangement crashing mid-ceremony. We don't have to talk about the shipping issues. I have a client who owns a linen rental company, and one of her most popular posts recently was a post about her laundry pile. And it was a picture of the aftermath of a beautiful wedding and what the laundry pile looked like after this event. And it performed so well. And it was because it was real. And it was a real look behind the curtain. And people know it's there. And so whenever we are kind of dancing around pretending it's not, there's that real disconnect on authenticity. So yes, Gen Z, 100%, they want to see you. They want to see behind the scenes. They want to understand the full picture. They want it to feel authentic in every way. And if it doesn't, it sticks out to them.
Well, I'm just so fascinated by this idea that like millennials created this ultra curated aesthetic that now has like become our detriment basically, because it's kind of like this hurdle that we have to overcome to be okay with, not having that. And I can totally see that. And I have seen a huge shift. I think, a lot of us have gotten a lot better about it, but it doesn't mean that it's not still something we kind of have to overcome. I know at least for me, like I can be pretty real and like share the behind the scenes in my stories, but my feed, I feel like that's like my baby. Like it's very curated and like I want it to look a certain way, but I've definitely heard that like it doesn't matter as much anymore. But that's like hard to overcome when you're so used to that.
It absolutely is. And it is a balance. I'm definitely not saying like, don't put your best work on your feed. That's not what Gen Z wants either. They need to know what you can produce and all the elements of beauty that are aligned with that. But how can you think outside the box? Like, what does it look like if you and your team are like cheersing your coffee, your, seventh coffee that day in front of the arch at the end of the ceremony? The arch speaks for itself. The ceremony speaks for itself. The coffee certainly speaks for itself. And then like you have your team, right? And it's this real moment that still embodies all the beauty of the day, but brings in some like real life to it. And even that same moment, maybe that's a reel where you're just like, we did it. But at the same time, your cover photo can be the beautiful end result. It doesn't have to be always everything is either perfect or imperfect. It's kind of about finding what works best for your business, but also not using that as an excuse not to show up.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. That's encouraging. So I talk a lot about Instagram just because that's what I personally use. And I feel like that's a very millennial app. But I mean, Gen Z is on Instagram too. But what are the platforms that you think Gen Z is really using and like trust the most?
So I definitely, and I'm very grateful to say what I'm about to say. It's still Instagram. It's absolutely still Instagram. And I'm so glad for that because I really love that platform.
Me too.
I obviously couldn't not say TikTok at this point. Like it has grown and is dependent, but it is such a different beast than Instagram. It is taking that level of rawness and authenticity and realness and taking it to a whole nother level because the perfect just does not relate on TikTok. It doesn't at all. But that is where a lot of Gen Z is residing and people are booking and using. And it's very interesting how that can be used almost as a separate marketing where if you're not really comfortable breaking out into the full raw on Instagram, do it over on TikTok. See what happens. Connect in a different way on TikTok where you don't have the years of experience and rules that you have embedded in your brain. Go play on TikTok because none of it really matters in the sense, but like at the same way, like if you want to go over on TikTok and just play around, have fun with it. Another one that is interesting and I think slept on a little bit is YouTube. This generation has got a YouTube for everything, like how to change a light bulb to how to plan a wedding to how to switch out a battery. Like everything is go to YouTube, watch a tutorial. Every answer you ever need is there. So why wouldn't we think that that is a space where people are learning things, right? And it is, in my opinion, largely very much untapped in the wedding industry. So if you're looking for a place to go and connect to Gen Z that isn't oversaturated, YouTube is definitely an option. Is it as heavy a focus for buying and purchasing for the wedding industry as Instagram? Maybe not, but it is uncharted territory that you can, again, play with, be creative, connect. The YouTube Shorts section over there is massive. You can repurpose your Instagram Reels, put them on YouTube Shorts. You're marketing in two places, and that's a place where Gen Z is very, very active is YouTube. So if you hate TikTok, you can always consider YouTube. But at the end of the day, it's, to me, as long as they're there, which they're there on TikTok, they're there on Instagram, they're on YouTube, they're not over on Facebook, like as long as it's a space that Gen Z is hanging out, it's less about where do I go and more how do I show up and connect to that person in the space that I am most comfortable marketing.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And you gave us some Good ideas of things that we might not already be doing. I agree about YouTube just being like just the untapped potential there because
Mhm.
as a whole, wedding pros are not using YouTube to sell. And I guess my question is like, or the reason that I haven't really uh dove into that one because it just feels like a lot like a much heavier lift. But you mentioned
Mhm.
Instagram shorts or sorry, YouTube shorts and how we could repurpose those there, which like I hadn't even thought about that. I just think of more of like the traditional YouTube videos, which just are longer and more time consuming. And then I'm wondering like if I put all this work in, is any of that actually going to convert into sales or are people more just going there like you said for information for education to learn like I've thought about this and I'm like someday maybe we'll see if I have the time but like I have this blog post that's done very well that's about what to expect at your ceremony rehearsal and the idea of repurposing that and putting it into a video and just calling it what to expect at your ceremony rehearsal because like you said Gen Z they're going to YouTube and looking those things
Uh-huh.
up maybe that would be even better than a blog post so that's definitely something I've had in the back of my mind and we'll see if I ever do it but I think it would be great for education but then is anybody going to see that and then book me from that I don't
I think
know.
it's very possible in the
Mhm.
sense that when you become the trusted expert,
Mhm.
who are they going to go to if they have the ability to be your client customer, right? Like obviously there's budget constrictions and there's location constrictions depending on your service and your offer. But if you are the person that they say, hey, I found this person on YouTube. They were really knowledgeable. They shared their information. They had great ideas. They told me things I hadn't thought about. And then they're going and saying, well, I need a wedding planner. Now let me find Susie Q down the street that I have no confidence in but she was a great referral from my cousin or I found her on Instagram, right? Like, no, you've placed yourself in a position of trust through
Mhm.
that content. So I do believe it would lead to clients. I do believe that you're hitting a broad audience, just like you do on Instagram. Not everybody you reach on Instagram is going to be your client. Same for YouTube, but you're instilling trust and proving your worth and that you know things in a very different way. So when it does come time to book and buy, they're going to go to the people they trust first. And you've already
Mhm.
made that trust connection. So I think there's great potential for booking. That leads me to another one that I kind of skipped over. But like, for example, ChatGPT. I mean,
Mhm.
people are booking vendors left and right now through
Mhm.
ChatGPT. And that's another one. Would we have thought that if AI returned us as a search result, that there'd be enough buying power? Who knows? But the proof is that it's happening.
Mhm.
So, that's another area Gen Z is absolutely leaning into.
Mhm.
And we're seeing the results of that as well.
Mhm. Yeah, it's crazy. I have had to like pull my 9-year-old off of Chat GPT because she was getting on my phone and asking it all kinds of questions about because we're getting a parakeet. And so she was wanting to like learn and research and stuff. But the amount of like products and things for birds that she learned about through Chat GPT, I'm like, it's crazy. So to think, at that very young age, she's finding things and getting recommendations on there that then down the road someday she'll probably be
Mhm.
looking for her wedding vendors on there too.
Yeah. And it is interesting to think, again, our minds go to a younger generation, right? We're going, our 13-year-old is doing this, our 9-year-old is doing this, my 17-year-old is doing this, my 15-year-old is doing this. And yeah, they're Gen Z. Some of them are Gen Alpha. But again, like we said, 13 to 28 is
Yeah.
Gen Z. But if we are in business of being in business, right? Long term, not just short term, what
Mhm.
we're looking at is the fact that if the 17-year-old is absorbing tons of content on YouTube and they're going to ChatGPT, that 17-year-old in, heaven forbid, 5 to 10 years is getting married. Where are they going to be going? Like everything will be
Mhm.
shifting to what they know. Are they going to switch platforms just to get inspiration for their wedding and get vendors? No, they're going to keep using what they're using. So we are looking at the future of things shifting.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk about texting because this is something I've
Okay.
definitely seen you talk about a lot. And I'm so curious just to hear all your thoughts about like how we should be using texting in our sales process. Should we be texting potential clients? Like how also like I know there is pushback on this. And so I'd like to get into a little bit of that too, of like some reasons why people might not want to do this. But Give me all your thoughts on texting.
Well, I love this conversation. So I love ROI. Okay. So this is why I love this conversation. I love when people get a return on their investment, and that can just be their time investment. And of any area that I've taught marketing, when I have said, go do this thing, you will get a return on your investment. Texting has been the most immediate, the literal most immediate. There has been so many times where I've gone to my students, my clients, and I've been like, go text them. And they do, and they call me back 5-10 minutes later, and they're like, I booked them. And I'm like, I know, like, I'm just like, I know, like, I wish people would just like try this. And so that's why I'm like so passionate about it, because it's so overlooked. It's a tool that is working. So the reason why it's working is everything that we have already said. Gen Z is the buying age coming up and happening now. But this texting conversation crosses over into younger millennials for sure. And there are plenty of people out there that hate texting. I understand that, and I've heard that, and I hear that. But the bottom line is we're in an age of instant gratification. People need and or want immediate answers, immediate response, immediate progress. And when you tell them to wait 24 to 48 hours, or you tell them to go to their inbox and wait 24 to 48 hours, you're putting them on hold in a way that is not comfortable and or normal to them. And so they keep moving because they don't slow down. They keep inquiring elsewhere. They keep having these conversations elsewhere. And what happens when they do find the person that will text them and give them instant information or will respond instantaneously? They go with that person because they were the quickest. Not because sometimes, and this is going to blow your mind, it's not sometimes because they're the best or the cheapest. It's because they were the fastest. And they worked with how their brain works, and they got the experience they wanted. And so they went with the person that responded the fastest. And whether we like that or not, that is where we are in this world, right? Like we can have all sorts of opinions on it. But when something is what it is, we can decide to work with it or not. And that's our right. Like, I'm not saying anybody has to text, but it fits into the way people process information these days. And it works with the way people want to buy. I do this. This is what started this whole thing for me. I have some projects around the house, and I would reach out to contractors and electricians and service pros and things, and I would text them. And I did it on purpose, whether it said it or not. And if I did not get a response via text, I moved on to another company. And if they texted me back and said, hey, call me, I moved on to another company. Because I'm busy. Like, I am so busy, and I need to communicate in this style, and I need to move fast, and I will give the job to the person who will respond to me. And I was like, that applies across the board these days. And how much business are people missing just because they're sending people to an inbox and they're telling them, and I hear it all the time, I respond pretty quickly within an hour. Okay, well, text messages are read within 30 seconds, usually, tops 3 minutes, and responded to within 3 minutes. An hour is forever in the Gen Z mind, right? And don't even get me started on the inbox. That's like old school in the sense of, do you look forward to go walking to your mailbox to see what flyers you got in the mailbox? That is the comparison. Inbox to Gen Z is millennials to the mailbox at the street, right? They don't enjoy it. Do they use it? Sure. Do they want to use it? No. So why are we sending them there?
So interesting. It is, I've been really impressed because it is across industries. Like, this is not just in the wedding industry. And I recently was also reaching out to like, not contractors, but we needed our roof cleaned. And so I filled in a couple different inquiry forms for local companies, and both of them texted me like immediately. And they were like, hey, when can we come out for an estimate? We'll be there. We'll give you a free estimate. And like, they just texted me. And I was like, whoa, like that is, it was awesome. Like, as a millennial, I appreciate it too. Like, cause like you said, I don't have time for a phone call. Like, just text me. I honestly never answer my phone. And if somebody doesn't leave a message, like, I won't call you back. Like, if you leave a message, I'll call you back. But like, I am a big texter myself. So I get it. And I know that it's only even increasingly so for Gen Z. And yeah, it's just hard because, like you said, not everyone's going to do this. Not everyone has to text, but like, there is a real chance that you are going to get left behind if you're not willing to try, to try it. And it's not that hard. What I did, I implemented on I still have my contact form on my website. They can also like my phone number's on there. So like they can text me directly. They can call me, they can email me. There's options. But still people generally fill out my contact form. And I just added a field that says, if you would like me to text you, drop your phone number here. And since I've added that, like almost every single person has put their phone number in, which is sending me the signal that like they want me to text them. And the really terrible thing is that even though they're putting their phone number in, up until somewhat recently, I still wasn't texting them. I was emailing them back, even though they gave me their phone number. So that's on me, but I'm well aware of it, and I am actively working to, be like, someone just reached out today and I texted her, like I emailed and I texted her and I said, hey, I just emailed you. And so anyways, it's so interesting.
And that is my number one recommendation for adopting this is put it on your inquiry form. I still am a diehard, use your workflows, push people to your inquiry forms, use your website, use the tools that we have around us to give people the best experience possible and to run your business the smoothest. But texting can fit in that. And so on your inquiry form, it literally says, what is your preferred method of communication, right? Like give them the option to get what they need and want instead of just forcing them into your methods and losing the people that don't fit, right? Just give them the option for texting. You don't have, they can say no, they may not want texting, and that's great. You communicate via email, you schedule a call, like all the usual processes. But when you have that option, you have the way to instantly connect, instantly follow up. Say I've sent you an email. I'm definitely not one that's saying everything should be text. Like there are times that at least it should be sent in either both or just email. But especially during that inquiry process, communicate the fastest you can. And generally that's text, and give them the choice of if they do that or not.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, like other ways that you see text being used. So like responding to the inquiry is an example. What about like if you send them the proposal, then should you send a text saying like, hey, I sent you the proposal? Or like what other ways should we be using text?
So to me, the inquiry is the most important. Absolutely the most important, because that's that first touch and having the conversation going. But after that, there are varying intensities of how far you want to go with this, truthfully. You could just use it to say, hey, I sent the contract to your email, right? They now know because we've already covered, they're not walking to their mailbox with joy every day, right? Like, so now they know to go check their email and they'll see it, and that's great, right? So you have a backup way to communicate on the important issues. But if you wanted to go super hardcore, this is something that people are like, well, contracts and invoices and all these things should only be done in email. That's actually not true. Most every CRM has the ability to link to your invoice. Every CRM has the ability to link to your portal or your contract. You actually can, if you choose, I'm not saying you have to, send contracts and invoices via text. I still think they should be sent via email too. I'm very pro email, but if you're sending a retainer and a contract and you want to lock this client down and their preferred method is text, why not send them a text with a short link that says, hey, I uploaded your contract and your initial invoice to your portal. Here's a link so you can see it really quick. Boom. They've handled that in 5 minutes instead of 5 days, right? So there's other ways to do it within the wedding industry. The other thing is follow-ups. That was one of those things where I was saying, like, you get an instant ROI. If you talk to someone, whether it was via text or email or call or whatever, and you haven't heard from them in a few days, send a text. It is so much more connected and real, and you will get a response much better than if you sent an email follow-up. Email follow-ups are avoided. This is why we say ghosting is a problem. I truthfully believe that it's less about people being rude with ghosting and more about the fact that people are not being communicated in their preferred method. I'm not saying it solves ghosting completely. People will still ignore your text from time to time, obviously. But when you're sending an email communication to a place they don't go, and then you're surprised when they don't respond, I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? So those very people, I've had told people, send them a text, follow up via text, and that's when I'm getting those responses. They replied instantaneously and they booked. It's like, yeah, because the problem was email, not you.
Yeah, that's huge.
The other thing that's kind of interesting, and this kind of plays around with the wedding industry and goes outside of it a little bit, but just in general, like if you sell anything extra, like a workshop or engagement sessions or, mini sessions, or you want to make sure people know about this offer that you're doing or this educational thing, those are also great for text because you can insert links, and links are opened. With email, we're happy when we're doing marketing, we're happy when we get like a 30% open rate and a 3 to 5% click rate in an email. Those are normal stats. With text messaging, you get a 98% open rate and an 80% click rate. So if you've got something to market, I'm just saying texting is the place to be.
Yeah, no kidding with those stats. Wow. That's awesome. I think that some of the pushback that I hear about texting sometimes is like, well, if I start texting, then I'm not going to be able to like withhold my boundaries because I don't text with clients or things like that. And it's like, if I start texting from the get-go, then they're going to think that they have access to me at any time. And so I'm just curious, what do you think about that? And how can we still have our boundaries while still using this like great marketing tactic?
Yeah, I think boundaries are so crucial. Like we already have problems with boundaries as business owners, even with ourselves, much less our clients. Like how many times are we working on something super late at night or on the weekend when we know we should probably be with our family or something like that? We have enough problems. We don't need extra layers. So I definitely have heard this as a objection, but at the end of the day, we are the ones that set the boundaries and we are the ones that stick to the boundaries. And so the first step is to set them, right? Like know what is your boundary going to be? Are you going to only reply during business hours? Are you going to reply within 24 hours, like your email? Or what is your boundary going to be? And when you decide what that is, you have to stick to it, but you also have to explain it, right? We can't assume our clients are going to know what our boundary is if we don't tell them what it is. So the way that I teach text message marketing is one of the first things we do after that whole inquiry thing is we explain what our boundaries are. Say something very clear. We absolutely love texting with you. Just so you know, we will answer texts within business hours. And if you text after hours, we will return to your text the next day. That's a boundary. Now it's our job to stick to it. We had to explain it. And now it's our job to stick to it. So if they text us at 9:00 that night, and you respond, you've now told them that your boundary wasn't real. And so they're going to keep texting you at 9:00 and 10:00 at night because they know they're going to get an answer because you did it, right? So it's, to me, not a problem with the method of marketing. It's the problem with us. And what are we saying? And what are we setting? And what are we doing? So if you want to use texting, tell them, I answer within business hours. And if I don't get to you, I'll get to you the next day. I've never had a client have a problem with that, ever. But then we have to stick to it and they'll be fine.
Yeah, that's so true. Just sticking to it ourselves, I think, is like the biggest thing. Like if we set the boundary, and then we break it, it's like obviously the client or a potential client is going to think it's totally fine to break it too. So we have to take it seriously. Yeah. Well, that's encouraging. I think that people will hear that and realize that, texting isn't going to just immediately like ruin all of their boundaries.
There are a few other boundary areas that I think are kind of interesting that I've found ways to work around, such as people are like, I don't want to give out my personal number, or I don't want to be always available, or all these things like that. There are tools for all that. I actually have a platform I recommend called ClickSend, and you can set your return replies to wherever you want them to. So when that client responds to you, it can go to your personal phone number through a business phone number, and they don't have your personal phone number, right? Same with Google Voice.
Yep.
Or you could even have with ClickSend, you can have it go to your inbox. And then if you are an email queen and you want to run all your business through your email, you still can. The client gets the texting experience, but you're doing it through your inbox. So there's lots of creative ways to like work with the technology to make the best version of it for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't heard of ClickSend, so that's good to know. I use Google Voice, and because I'm the same way. I'm like, back when I started, I was like, I don't want like my personal phone number on my business cards and stuff. Like that just felt weird. But yeah, there's great resources. So you don't have to give out your personal number and it still goes to your phone. So yeah. Oh my gosh, there's so much more I want to ask you. And we're like getting low on time. So we might have to have you back on for like a part 2 if you'd be up for that. But let's just see what last couple questions I want to ask you. I would love to know if there are any outdated sales tactics that you see wedding pros using that maybe just are not like landing well with Gen Z.
Honestly, I thought about this one for a little while. And what's kind of nice, and the reason why I say I don't just teach like Instagram or the one thing, I teach marketing strategy, right? There's a lot of options out there. There's YouTube that we talked about. There's TikTok, there's Google ads, there's Google My Business, there's SEO, there's like all these different ways. And I do think wedding professionals get stuck in this concept that there's only one way to grow a business, and that's through Instagram. We must be on Instagram and nothing else matters, right? And that's not true. What we need is to get in front of potential clients and customers. And there are multiple ways to do that. I actually ran a business for a solid 2 years where I barely touched my Instagram at all because I was burnt out on it. And I ran a thriving business, and it's because I switched where my focus was. So like when I look across the board and I say, okay, are there any outdated tools that people should stop using to reach Gen Z? There's some, like Facebook is just not really a Gen Z playground, and that's fine. But I don't think anybody's thinking it is and trying to reach Gen Z over there. Most of the platforms that are currently an option are working for Gen Z. It's more our methods on those platforms and our mindset, our approach to it that isn't working with Gen Z. So the nice thing is the tools are still working. It's us and our, a willingness to, again, be authentic and to respond quickly and to be a little more off the cuff. My feed is very strange to me. Like, I will be the first to tell you that if you had asked me 3 years ago if I'd have memes on my page on Instagram, I would have rather died. But the reality is like, it works, And so leaning into what works and what connects and what builds instead of just what you think you're supposed to do is probably the best way to move forward with Gen Z.
Yeah, totally agree. So if a wedding pro listening wants to make like one change this week to connect better to Gen Z, what is one thing they could try?
Absolutely. Oh, I've got to give you two.
Okay.
Absolutely add the preferred method of communication to your inquiry form. 100% immediately add the option to text to your inquiry form. And then my second one that I'm just like, I want to hear from people who are listening and watch this just happen for you is follow up with people you thought ghosted you or went MIA. Follow up with them via text, just immediately. And then when they come back and they say, I want to book you, I want to work with you, please DM me on Instagram and tell me you were right, because I'm loving it.
Yeah. Okay. Those are two great, like easy things that we can do. Like all of us can update our inquiry form and we can like go to our lead tracker and find like the last person who ghosted us. So we can text him. Like that's so tangible, which I love. Okay, amazing. Well, Amanda, where can my listeners connect with you online? Obviously, I will include your amazing Instagram page and your website and all that good stuff. But if they want to learn more about your services, your coaching, where can they find you?
So definitely hang out with me over on Instagram at the Bridal Theory. You can also go to my website at www.amandawritesman.com. And on there are all your ways to work with me. I do one-on-one business coaching, I do group coaching, and I have the Curated Marketing Society, which is my monthly membership for pros to teach them all the beautiful things about marketing and actually have fun with it, because I know it's not always fun. And then I do have some random courses and things like that out there, such as my Texting for Growth course. So there's a lot of ways to work with me. But mostly I just love DMs. So if anybody wants to send me a DM on Instagram, that would be great. And we can have conversations over there and see where you need to be. Awesome. Okay. Well, I will include all of that in the show notes. And yeah, everyone definitely DM Amanda if you have any luck. Like she said, I want to hear too. So, okay. Well, thank you, Amanda. This was so awesome. I can't wait to share this. And I just appreciate you taking the time today. Yes, this was fun. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Event Crushed podcast. I hope you found value in this episode, and if you did, please consider sharing it with a wedding industry friend. We also hope you'll consider leaving a rating or review for the show to help other listeners find it. This podcast is edited and produced by Ace Sound Design. If you're looking to elevate your audio experience, their info can be found in the show description. As always, thank you for listening, and please connect with us on Instagram if you haven't already. Now get out there and crush it.